you so much for coming out tonight. We're so thankful that you've decided to make the trip out on what has become a very, very rainy day. So we hope you enjoyed that first piece, an absolute standard of the band repertoire, the Festivo by Václav Nelibel, a Czech-American composer. So tonight's program is all about looking at American music for band and choir from the viewpoint of a lot of different composers. So that was a very traditional kind of band sound that Václav Nelibel gave us. And now we're going to move on to a very different take on what the band can do. We've been so fortunate over the last 24 hours or so to have with us a guest composer, Philip Rice. He is a really great friend of mine. We started our doctoral degrees together at Michigan State University about 4 years ago, and he is currently in his final year now of his doctorate in composition and also a master's degree in theory pedagogy. And it just so happened to work out by sheer circumstance that while we were there, I happened to be the conductor of the world premieres of the 3 large instrumental works that he wrote during that time. And the piece that you're going to hear tonight, They Have Pulled Down Heaven, is one of those 3 pieces. So I was so thrilled that we had an opportunity to bring him here to work with us on this piece. And without taking away any of his thunder, I'd like to welcome Philip to the stage now so he can share with us his thoughts about this piece and set us up to hear it. So please help me welcome Philip Rice to the stage.
Yeah, I'll second Gretchen and say thank you so much for coming out on this rainy Monday. This is my first time to Arkansas, and I've had a great time so far. I've been really, really pleased by all the students here. They're so thoughtful and insightful and intelligent. I've just had a really great time so far. So thank you, everybody, for the warm welcome. So a little bit about this piece. The title, They Have Pulled Down Heaven, comes from a book by C.S. Lewis that is called That Hideous Strength. Some of you may have read it if you're a fan of C.S. Lewis. And it's actually, it's a very strange space kind of sci-fi book that, C.S. Lewis uses all these metaphors for religion. And in this book, he imagines God and angels as being aliens that live in outer space. And the title of that chapter is about how people on Earth have sort of upset the balance of nature and have brought down kind of destruction on themselves. And that title, when I read that, I thought that would be such a great piece for band. That would be a great band piece. They have pulled down heaven. And then it got me thinking about all the ways that human beings try to bring down heaven. We've literally gone out into space and we've brought back moon rocks and things from heaven. And we also imagine things coming down from heaven throughout our mythology, and all world religions talk about things coming down from the sky. And so I thought it'd be really cool to do a depiction of that with the band. So you're going to hear some very interesting sounds. This piece was really experimental for both me and for the ensemble that premiered it, because there's a lot of improvised stuff. So there are places in the score where there's nothing really specific written. There are some notes that are given, and the players are expected to kind of just work with that and play on their own time in their own world. And so you'll hear some very high sounds in the flutes and percussion, and that sort of represents this idea of heaven and stars and outer space and all that. And then you'll also hear some very low sounds in the brass and percussion that represent kind of this human endeavor to go up out into heaven. And then you'll hear a third element, which is a Lutheran chorale called Von Himmel hoch, which means from heaven above to earth I come. And that's actually a Christmas hymn. It's about, Christ coming to earth. So getting in the Christmas spirit a little bit in a sort of science fiction way. So I hope you enjoy this piece.
we started the first half of the program with a big old standard of the band repertoire, and now we'll return to another one that just paired so well with Philip's piece. One of the main elements, as Philip talked about with his piece, was the use of the chorale from Heaven Above. And this next piece, the Chorale and Shaker Dance by John Zdechlik, also features the use of a chorale. So in the first 8 bars of this piece, you're going to hear all the melodic material that he really came up with for this piece. You'll hear his own chorale, which he composed, and then a few bars later, you're going to hear a little snippet of the very well-known Simple Gifts theme. So this piece is essentially a big conversation between these two themes going back and forth, and not only the themes in their original versions, but different permutations of them. Sometimes he'll make them really long, he'll stretch out each one of the notes, sometimes they'll be fast. It's just, I think, a really well-crafted piece. It's a whole lot of fun to play, and we really hope you enjoyed this piece, John Zdechlik's Chorale and Shaker Dance. hope you enjoyed that piece. Again, another very different take on the writing for the American band. And that was Dana Wilson, a professor at Ithaca College up in New York. And his writing tends to feature a lot of jazz harmonies, which I'm sure you heard in there. And also he enjoys a lot of complicated and tricky rhythms as well. And to make it even more challenging, his writing tends to be very minimalistic as well. So his writing tends to be very sparse, and that means that we have to concentrate super hard to make sure that we're very confident with just placing our parts in the right location, because there's just not much help when the writing is as sparse as it is. So I hope you enjoyed that very kind of jazzy take on writing for band. Now, as you can clearly see, we are welcoming our friends from the Hendrix Choir and their director, Dr. Andrew Morgan, to the stage. Dr. Morgan and I, a few months ago, I started talking about bringing Philip Rice here to campus, and I knew that Philip had written a number of choral works, and I asked if Dr. Morgan might look into the possibility of singing one of Philip's works, and then that gradually moved into, well, let's do a concert together, and then that moved into, well, we should collaborate on something, and now we have tonight. So we're very excited that the choir is here with us. We're going to give them an opportunity now to perform a piece on their own. This is another one by Philip Rice, so I'd like to welcome him to the stage again so he can tell us a little bit about 3 Celtic blessings. Please welcome Philip again.
Thanks again. It's good to see you all again. So I got to work with the choir today, and I was, again, thrilled at their abilities. They have a beautiful tone, and they're under some really wonderful direction. This is a bit of an older piece for me. The piece that you heard the band do, I just wrote last year. These 3 Celtic blessings that you'll hear next are 10 years old. I wrote them in my final year of high school, so it was kind of interesting to hear them again after so long. They're simple settings. The third movement, the text you may recognize, may the road rise up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, et cetera, et cetera. It's on a lot of greeting cards, that sort of thing. But the first 2 movements are sort of lesser-known Celtic prayers or blessings, sort of to send loved ones off or to bring good fortune on your home or whatever. So they use some very kind of tender harmonies and sort of an intimate sound, and the choir is doing just a fantastic job of expressing that in a really meaningful way. So I hope you enjoy 3 Celtic blessings.
conducting from the back of the stage is always sort of a bizarre experience. I felt really far away from you and from Philip. But now I'm here. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out. I'll repeat the same thing my colleagues said on this dreary evening for a musical evening. So glad that you're all here. Dr. Renshaw and I thought that it would be very fitting in closing tonight's program featuring all-American music and featuring band and choir together singing music by perhaps one of the most influential of American composer, Aaron Copland, who really did more than so many other composers simply in terms of helping to define what it meant to sound American as a composer. I told my students earlier in the semester that he was a very eclectic, diverse composer, wrote in a lot of different styles and sound qualities and different schools of thought as a composer, but perhaps he's best known for the music that he did that sort of attempted to embody this ideal of the West and the ideal of rural America and the expansive horizons. And with that in mind, it's interesting to compare the fact that he was from Brooklyn. He was like a city guy from the East Coast, and so was Bernstein. And yet Bernstein was very jazz and urban-oriented as a composer, and yet Copland seems to have embraced this idea of the great outdoors from his music. And so the one that we're going to be performing for you, these are two songs from a set of his called the Old American Songs. He wrote them in two sets. Originally wrote them for solo voice and orchestra, I believe, and then they were later arranged for choir by other American composers such as Irving Fine, who's another well-known American mid-century composer. And then they've been now transcribed for us for band and choir. So we'll be performing two. These are both from the second set of the Old American Songs. Zion's Walls is based on an old rural hymn tune, and then Ching-a-Ring Chaw is more of a let's dust off the boots and go square dancing and finish the night off with a party. So I'll welcome my colleague, Dr. Renshaw, back out to the stage, and we hope you enjoy our last two selections for the evening by Aaron Copland. Thank you so much for coming. goodies next door, reception and enrichment. We'll see you there in 5 minutes. Bye.